You never imagine that the children you raise with love could one day become the reason for your deepest sorrow. When you hold them in your arms for the first time, the world feels pure, simple, and full of meaning. I remember the day my elder son was born, his tiny fingers curling around mine, his soft cry echoing in the room. And 2 years later, his younger brother followed, with the same beautiful eyes that reminded me of their father. From that day, my world revolved around those two boys. I was a young mother then, hopeful, full of dreams for their future. My husband and I weren't wealthy in the beginning, but we built our life brick by brick. I used to say to him, "Let's not leave gold behind for them. Let's leave values." But life has a cruel way of showing us that not everyone treasures values the same way. After my husband passed away, I thought the hardest part of my life was over. Losing him felt like losing my shadow, but I had my sons. They were my comfort. I told myself that if I poured all my love and faith into them, they would stand by me no matter what came our way. For years, I devoted everything to them. My time, my savings, my energy, even my health. I made sure they studied well, ate well, dressed well. When they started their own careers, I felt proud. And when they got married, I welcomed their wives with open arms, believing that my family had grown, not changed. At first, everything seemed fine. My daughters-in-law were polite, respectful, even affectionate. They called me Ma and helped around the house. We shared meals, stories, laughter. I truly believed I had been blessed with not just sons, but 2 loving daughters as well. But slowly, the tone of the house began to change. Small remarks turned into whispers. Whispers turned into arguments. And one day, I woke up to realize that I was no longer the heart of my home. I had become an outsider in it. It began subtly. My younger son's wife started questioning my decisions. The way I cooked, the way I spoke, the way I managed the household accounts. Then the elder one joined her. I remember overhearing them once in the kitchen, speaking in hushed voices. My name came up, followed by laughter. It stung, but I told myself they were just joking. I tried not to see the malice. Soon my sons began to change too. They were distant, distracted, easily irritated by me. Whenever I asked about their work or health, they would say, "Ma, you worry too much." Just rest. But rest from what? My whole life had been about caring for them. One evening, I heard my daughters-in-law talking in the living room. They didn't know I was nearby. One said, "If we could just get the property in our names, we could finally renovate this house. Why let the old woman hold everything?" I stood frozen behind the door. My heart was pounding so loudly that I was sure they could hear it. My fortune, everything my husband and I had built, was in my name. And suddenly, I realized it wasn't love that kept them close anymore. It was greed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I looked around my room and felt like a stranger in my own home. I thought of my husband and how he used to say, "The real test of parenting isn't when your children are small. It's when they're grown." I understood those words now, more deeply than ever. A few weeks later, the pressure began. My elder son came to me one afternoon, holding some papers. He said it was just for future convenience, a property transfer in case anything happened to me. His voice was calm, but his eyes avoided mine. I asked him, "Do you not trust your mother to make her own decisions?" He smiled and said, "Of course I do, Ma. It's just a formality I refused to sign." That's when I saw the first crack in his mask. He turned cold, His wife didn't even hide her anger. My younger son stayed silent at first, but over time, his wife poisoned his thoughts too. She'd whisper things to him, that I favored his brother, that I would leave him with nothing. Slowly, my own sons began to look at me, not as their mother, but as an obstacle. It broke me. Every night, I sat by the window, thinking of the little boys who once fought for my lap, who cried when I got sick, who promised to take care of me when I grew old. Now, those same boys couldn't even look at me without suspicion. Then came the day I'll never forget. They called me to the living room, both of them, their wives by their sides. I knew what was coming, but I went anyway. My elder son said, "Ma, we've talked about this. You can't keep the property in your name forever. It's time to think about the future." I asked, "Whose future? Yours or mine?" He didn't answer. My younger son spoke next. "Ma, it's not safe for you to handle things anymore. You're getting old. We'll take care of everything." The irony was bitter. The same children I had protected from the world now wanted to protect themselves from me. When I refused again, their tone changed. Voices were raised. My daughters-in-law started crying fake tears, accusing me of favoritism, of selfishness. I stood there, feeling the walls closing in. My heart was pounding, but my mind was strangely calm. I realized that the home I had built with love had become a cage. That evening, my elder son shouted, "If you can't trust us, maybe you shouldn't live here anymore." The words hung in the air like poison. I waited for my younger one to say something, to defend me, to remind his brother who I was, but he stayed silent. So I walked to my room, packed a small bag, took my shawl, and left. No one stopped me. Not one voice called out, "Ma, don't go." The silence of that house was louder than any scream. I walked for hours that night, without a destination. I didn't cry. I had no tears left. I checked into a small guest house, and the next morning, I called an old friend, my late husband's lawyer, Mr. Sharma. He had always been kind, respectful. When he saw me, his face fell. I told him everything, and then I said the words that would change everything. "I want to donate all my property, every rupee, to charity." He stared at me, speechless. "Madam, are you sure?" he asked. I said, "More sure than I've ever been about anything." I told him to draw up the papers immediately. Every asset, every account, every piece of land, all of it. I wanted nothing left behind for those who had turned their hearts to stone. Instead, I wanted my life's earnings to feed orphans, fund education, build homes for those who truly understood the meaning of family. As I signed the papers, I felt lighter than I had in years. It was as if I had released not just money, but pain. When everything was finalized, I moved into an old age home, not because I had nowhere to go, but because I chose peace over poison. The home was beautiful, surrounded by gardens and laughter. The other women there welcomed me warmly. For the first time in years, I slept peacefully, without fear or betrayal shadowing my dreams. 2 days later, my sons finally tried to contact me, but by then, it was too late.
2 days after I left, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number at first, but I knew who it would be. I almost didn't answer. But something inside me, maybe the faint echo of the mother I used to be, pressed the call button. It was my younger son. His voice was shaking, nervous, almost fearful. "Ma," he said, "the landlord came today." I stayed silent. He continued, "He said the house isn't ours anymore. That the property has been transferred. He's demanding rent." "Rent, Ma? How can that be? We live here. What's happening?" For a long moment, I said nothing. I could hear both of them in the background, panicking, arguing. Then I took a deep breath and said quietly, "I knew this would happen." They both went silent. "What do you mean, Ma?" my elder one asked, his tone desperate. I said, "I knew one day your greed would blind you. I knew one day you would choose money over me. So I made sure that when that day came, you would get exactly what you earned. Nothing." They didn't understand at first. "Ma, please, what are you saying?" So I told them the truth, that I had donated everything, every property, every asset, to charity. That the house they were standing in no longer belonged to them or to me. That it now belonged to an organization that would use it to shelter children who had none. There was silence on the other end. Then my elder son began to shout, "Ma, how could you do this?" "This was our father's house. You had no right," I let him shout. I didn't interrupt. I waited until his voice cracked, and then I said softly, "I had every right, my son. It was your father's wish that this home be filled with love, not greed. You both drove that love away. You wanted my property. Now you can keep your pride instead." He hung up on me. My younger son tried to speak, his voice trembling. "Ma, we didn't mean it. We were just angry. Please come home. We'll fix everything." I smiled through tears they couldn't see. "Home?" I said. "That house stopped being my home the day you threw me out of it. I have a home now, a real one. And I'm at peace." I ended the call. After that day, there were many missed calls, messages, even letters. I didn't respond to any of them. Sometimes you have to let silence teach the lessons your words never could. Life in the home was peaceful. Every morning, I'd wake up to the sound of laughter from the children who came to visit, students from the school my donation had helped build. They'd run around the garden, shouting, playing, filling the air with the same joy my sons once brought me. Watching them, I felt no bitterness, only gratitude. I had lost 2 sons but gained hundreds of children who reminded me that love, when given freely, never truly leaves you. I spent my days reading, teaching the children songs my mother had taught me, and helping the staff with small chores. The women there became my family. Some had stories even sadder than mine, abandoned by children, cheated by relatives, forgotten by the world. But together, we built something beautiful, a sisterhood of strength. Sometimes at night, I'd think of my sons. I wondered if they understood yet that wealth is not inheritance, it's responsibility. I wondered if they missed me. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. It no longer mattered. I had forgiven them long before they even asked for it, not for their sake, but for mine. One afternoon, nearly a year later, I received a letter. The handwriting was familiar, shaky, uneven, but unmistakably his. It was from my elder son. I hesitated before opening it, afraid of what I might feel. Inside, he wrote, "Ma, we lost everything. The house, the money, the respect of our neighbors. Everyone says we got what we deserved. Maybe they're right. I think about you every day. I think about the day you walked away. I wish I had stopped you. I wish I had been a better son. If you can, please forgive me. I read that letter several times. The words didn't make me angry. They made me sad. Not because of what I had lost, but because of what he had become. Greed had turned my sons into strangers. But maybe, just maybe, they were starting to find their way back." I didn't reply to the letter. There are some wounds that only time can tend to, not words. But I prayed for them that night. I prayed they would find peace, humility, and compassion. Over time, the pain that once defined me faded into memory. I realized that sometimes God takes everything away from you, not to punish you, but to remind you of what truly matters. I didn't need a mansion to feel rich. I didn't need property to feel secure. I just needed peace, and I had found it.
One day, a group of volunteers from the charity organization invited me to see the new home they had built for orphaned children using the funds from my estate. When I arrived, I couldn't stop my tears. The building was painted bright yellow, full of sunlight and laughter. On the entrance, there was a small plaque that read, "The House of Hearts, donated by a mother who believed in love." That line broke me, not because it was sad, but because it was true. I had believed in love all my life, even when it hurt me, even when it betrayed me. And now, that love had taken on a new form, one that would outlive me. I watched the children play, their faces glowing with joy. One little girl ran up to me, holding a handmade card. On it, in crooked letters, she had written, "Thank you, Ma." I hugged her tightly, and in that moment, I realized something profound. Motherhood isn't about blood. It's about heart. It's about the endless capacity to give, even after you've been broken. I spent the rest of my days surrounded by laughter, not silence, warmth, not greed. I shared my story with others, not as a tale of tragedy, but as a lesson. A reminder that love without respect is an empty promise, and that forgiveness is the greatest form of strength. Years later, when I felt my time was near, I sat by the window one last time, watching the sunset. The sky was painted in shades of gold and crimson, colors of endings and beginnings. I thought of my husband, my sons, the home I once had, and the one I had found. If I could speak to my sons one last time, I would tell them this: "Children, a mother's love is endless, but it is not blind. I gave you everything, not to make you rich, but to make you good. You thought wealth was power, but you forgot that kindness is the only true inheritance worth having. I hope one day you'll understand that what I did was not out of revenge, but out of love. Because only when you lose everything do you learn what truly matters." My story isn't unique. Every mother gives, forgives, and loves more than she should. But I hope my story reminds people that even the softest hearts can make the strongest choices. When I finally closed my eyes that night, I wasn't alone. I was surrounded by the children whose laughter had replaced my tears. I was at peace, knowing that my love had taken root in 1,000 hearts, blooming where greed could never reach. And if anyone ever asks me whether I regret giving everything away, I would smile and say, no, I didn't lose a fortune. I gained a legacy, because sometimes knowing what will happen doesn't make the pain easier, but it does make the ending stronger. I knew this would happen. I just didn't know that in losing everything, I would finally find myself.